Recently, I had been asked about my opinions on shadow work, and I felt like I could elaborate to the person a little bit better over video, and I think it's generally good for the audience as well. So, um, shadow work is typically the term usually refers to like integrating the parts of you that are really, really deep within, and it's usually like bad stuff, right? Like the trauma and the wounds that you have carried for a really long time, and the really really deep shame kind of things. And a lot of the purpose of the shadow work is what I think that's primarily where I would like to talk about today. What's the point of shadow work? Why do we need to do shadow work? So many people want to engage in shadow work because they have this really recurring problem that's so deeply within their identity, and it's very difficult for them to kind of go through life. Sometimes it's just hard to go through the ordinary motions of life, but other times their day to day is more or less fine, but they have sort of bigger aspirations with life, and they have like greater things that they want to achieve with life. But in order for them to kind of become a different person, become a bigger person, become the person who kind of strives towards their goal. Many times they have to kind of become a different version of yourself, which means shedding the old patterns that you used to have, like the limiting beliefs and such. But this all sounds good, right? Theoretically, when you're thinking about it, you're taking away the parts of you that don't serve you anymore, and you're kind of moving on to a better version of yourself. So, in theory, it sounds all good, hunky dory. But why it's difficult in practice is because these shadowy parts are so deeply ingrained within you that the identity doesn't really want you to let go of it. So, for example, right? Um, Suppose, I'll give you a real life example of something that I really worked with. I had a really big insecurity about my intelligence. Why? Well, because when I was a kid, there was a moment where I felt really, really, really embarrassed because of my intellect. And to talk about it a little bit more, in Korea, when you're growing up, every year there's like an autumn sports event, like a school-wide sports event. Then everyone has to, mandatorily participate in it. And I was in second grade, and in second grade we have the second graders were, in supposed to do some like mass choreography for the school, right? Okay, whatever. So in order to learn the choreography, the entire school is in the yard, and then you have a teacher, and then you have a group of a few kids who kind of demonstrate the choreography in front of the entire school. I was one of those kids. And then when I'm, when the teacher does it, we do it together, and then everybody watches us, and then they kind of follow along the movements and the choreography. Everything's going good, and then I make one mistake. I don't know, something ridiculous, like lifting my left hand instead of my right hand, or something like that. And then the teacher with like a hot mic, that's onto the entire school, looks at me and says, "You idiot!" Right? And so at that moment, I'm like, "Whoa!" Well, I'm kind of not. I'm kind of non. I'm talking about it casually now, but at the time, it was a really, really big shock for me, and it really embarrassed me. There was like a big shame around it because, you know, like a teacher is somebody I look up to as an authority figure. But at the same time, all I did was just make a mistake. It's not really like a big thing that I did, right? I don't think I'm an idiot based on how I feel about it. But at the same time, somebody I trust, somebody I kind of like look up to says I'm an idiot. So this kind of fragmented self between am I an idiot? The teacher said so, so it must be true. Versus, I'm not an idiot. All I did was just make a simple mistake that literally anybody can make. This teeter tottering was always inside the back of my mind. So it's not a good feeling to think about it, right? And when people say like, "Hey, when you're a kid, sometimes you have people who joke around about things. It's really like, oh, Billy, you're stupid." And then I would get really, really defensive, right? Like, did you just call me stupid? I'm not stupid. And then, um, you know, I just get so triggered. But you know what the funny thing is? If if somebody who I perceive has to have a, suppose there's somebody who I perceive as having a higher intellect than me. So, for example, somebody with a better GPA than me, or somebody with a better degrees than I have, or somebody who went to a better school than I did. Now, if they said I'm stupid, I'm kind of like accepting of it. I'm like, you know what? There's got to be a point to that. But there's got to be some people, because I rank people, there's got to be some people who I think are relatively dumber compared to me, right? Back then, this was how I used to think. And then when the people who I don't really think are smart tell me that I'm stupid, then holy crap. Like, I can feel my entire blood boiling, right? Because I'm just so angry at, like, how dare you say it? And then, that's the shadow that this is like a good topic for shadow work. Okay. And now, um, in the end, why is it so hard to shed? Just like be okay with people, telling you stupid, bro. Like it's not a big deal. In theory, it is like that. Just be happy, bro. But like, why is it so hard? Because when you try to become a different person, for example, for me, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to come on YouTube and stream and talk to you guys like this. But when I go live, there's always a risk of somebody telling me I'm stupid. And that prevents me from doing so many things. I can't make a post on Instagram because what if somebody says I'm stupid? Well, I try to write an email and then I think, what if somebody thinks I'm stupid? So just like this, every kind of um, activity that I want to do for my new goal in life is ultimately hindered by what if people think I'm stupid? And that is what really, really just kind of kills just drains the life out of things, right? It sucks. It really, really sucks. And now, what are some different examples of like shadow work? Suppose you were sexually abused as a child. And now, when you try to go out into the world and do your own thing, you are going to be gathering attention from a lot of people. And when you get a lot of attention from other people, you might encounter somebody who really resembles the person who violated you. So, it's easy to say, just don't feel violated, bro, but then it doesn't really work like that, right? So, shadow work, what's the point of it? It's to, most people think about it in terms of, I don't want to feel bad anymore, right? I don't want to feel stupid anymore. I don't want to be triggered when other people call me stupid. I don't want to be constantly reminded of my past. So, many people are raised by narcissistic parents. And when you're raised by narcissistic parents, like what's a really big pattern in your life? Always being a people pleaser, always being 2 steps ahead of other people's emotions, right? And you're being emotionally responsible for everybody. But it's really difficult for you to not do that because you just don't feel safe when other people are upset at you. So what do you want to do? Oh man, if my life was perfect, I just wouldn't have to deal with this stuff. Like I would just be okay with people being mad at me. That is a good goal to have. But my take on shadow work is I want to be unconditional, right? I want to get the things that I want regardless of the condition. I strongly don't believe in conditions. So, for example, can you be happy even when you don't have parents? Because if happiness requires parents, then that means people without parents can never be happy, right? Is that true? It's not. There are plenty of people without parents who are happy. And that also means that everybody with parents must be happy. That's also not the case, right? Many people want more money. And they think that if I had more money, I would be happy. Then does that mean happiness is dependent on money. Is money a condition for happiness? It's not. Because there are plenty of people who have less money or no money compared to you, but are happier. It's a separate thing. So I like to take that to the extreme. I like to believe that there is no absolute condition in happiness. Now, I take the same logic and apply it to shadow work. If you want to be successful, success has no condition. Because if you need to not feel bad when other people call you stupid, otherwise you can't have success. That's a really strong condition, right? So is it true that all successful people don't feel bad when they're called an idiot? It's not. So my approach to shadow work is, yes, you have this thing, right? Yes, you feel bad about it, right? But it's so important to work with the version of you that you have, and then progressively work that version of you into the success that you want. If many people take this as an all or nothing, they think they can't get started on their route and the path to success until they sort all of their stuff out. Why? The implicit belief under that is, I have to be perfect before I start being successful. That's not really the case. Anybody can be successful regardless of the circumstance that they find themselves in. But that doesn't mean that everybody is already successful, like to the degree of what they want. People need to be able to work with the version of themselves that they have at the moment, because there is no other you that you can work with. So it's difficult for me to come on stream because I don't want to be called an idiot. But for me to be a YouTuber, I have to work with the version of me who feels insecure. I need to be able to work towards my goals and my dreams with my insecurity. I need to be able to do that first. Well, not first. There's no real order to it. What I'm saying is that work is separate from being okay with being called an idiot. They have no relation to each other. So, over the course of time, you will find that when you're not upset, when you're not triggered, turns out it's a lot easier to be successful. So, over time, as you work more and more towards your success, you naturally integrate the shadow work into you. Because why? The more you actually work on your dreams with your baggage, the more you realize the difficulty of it. And as you do more and more work, you look for ways to make your life easier. How do I do this easier? How do I do this better? How do I learn from my mistakes? And then over time, you converge towards this idea that, what if? It sounds crazy, but what if I just stop being burdened by my past? And I'm greatly simplifying here, but that is sort of the inner dialogue that happens until it just lands and you are able to progress with your life. So it's okay to have deep shadowy parts of you. So when you work with me in a one-on-one coaching, environment, one of the things that we will do a lot is work with the version of you that we have today. And then we are going to progressively work towards a communal understanding of, right? I thought that my current state was absolutely horrible, but turns out this is quite okay. And I'm not being blocked. I'm not being prevented by myself from being the person that I want to be. So thinking about what actually needs to be done to be the person I want to be. That is much more important than trying to integrate everything before you do that work. So, that is my version of shadow work. If you're interested in exploring shadow work with me or any other kind of work so that you can stop suffering in your life, stop being miserable, I'm available for your hire. You can start emailing me at billy@julylifecoach.com.